Good afternoon, everybody. This panel discussion is specifically designed in English version. And we're very delighted to have three guests coming here today. Before we talk, let me just introduce the three guests here. Madame Bangu Jiang, barrister, solicitor of Bangu Jiang Professional Corporation. Mr. Garry Shapiro, founder and senior partner of Shapiro Real Estate and Business Lawyers. And Mr. Scott Ma, Director, Pre-Construction Sales and Marketing, Broker, Home Life Landmark Realty, Inc. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Okay, so we're going to talk about the law issues, challenges related specifically to the real estate investment today. And our first question will be, what are the new rules or legal regulations that became effective in 2023? We would like to give this question addressing to Madame Bangu Jiang first, and Garry and Scott, you're more than welcome to add your input, please.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm truly delighted to have this opportunity to share and to learn. And as Albert introduced, this is the English session, but I would like to modify a little bit. I would like to use both English and Chinese. I see you are in agreement, is that right? So we do both, and I already spoke with Garry and Scott. They are very generous with this idea. So I use either language, just in my discretion. So we get into the topic of the new law or new rules. I share a story with you first. 大概2个多月以前，下午3、4点钟。突然呢，一个电话响了，一个我的经纪朋友，很急，声音很急很大。江律师，我有2个顾客要买农地，他们是外国人，今天晚上叫下 offer， 你要跟我搞清楚啊，能买不能买，我可不愿意违法呀。你们遇到过这个事儿吗？另外有一天，一个顾客他卖房，然后也打电话来，我的助手把所有的 information 都 collect 了。其实他是我的老顾客，他 insist 我一定要 speak to lawyer 讲，为什么呢？他说这个买家呢，好像刚刚从中国来，还在说怎么把钱从中国倒来什么的，然后呢，对加拿大的这个系统也不熟，他担心了。哎，他说如果这个买家是个外国人，我会不会卖了一场寂寞呀？到时候卖完没有交接不了怎么办？这2个顾客的 concern， 这2个phone call all about it， 我们新开始的2023年1月1号开始的这个新的法律，英语叫 The Prohibition on the Purchase of Residential Property by Non-Canadians Act. This law, the name is very long. I prefer there's some kind of a short form. But this title itself tells lots of things. 如果我们 go through 这里头的每一个字，我们大概就能懂这个法律大概讲了什么。第一个，它是讲针对的是谁 ？Non-Canadians， 不是 non-residents。它这个法用的词是 non-Canadian。简单说，谁是 non-Canadian？ 如果你不是加拿大公民，你不是 permanent residents， 然后呢，你的 corporation 是 incorporated outside Canada， 或者是你 corporation incorporated in Canada， 但是呢有 10% more than 10% 的 control 是 foreigner， 那这都你就是 non Canadian。所以说 most relevant 就是 whether or not 这个 buyer 是 Canadian citizen or permanent residence。这个法律当然有 exception， 待会儿我们要大概说一下哈。它的 exception， 比如说你有 worker permit 的也可以买，然后 visa student 也可以，但是是非常难用，那个都要报税好多年。那个 visa student 是要 file tax 5 years， 然后过去的5年里头，每一年要在加拿大住244天，然后买的房子不能超过50万。所以很多人一听，这个有 worker permit 的人呢，是你的买房子的时候，你的 working permit 还有至少183天到期，然后呢，你也没买过，在这段时间没买过房，你买的房也不超过50万，所以说这就是很难，其实是很难适用的。然后我们刚才说了，针对谁的，然后做什么，不让买房。什么叫 purchase？purchase 呢是2种，都会被这个法律管到。一个是直接的转产权的，就是我们 normal 的，经常有的哈，买个房子要过户的。另外一种呢，就是如果你买个 corporation， 这个 corporation 本身呢，它有这个 own 一个 residential property。好，你把 corporation 100% share 买过来以后，其实呢也是叫 purchase。下面一个最重要的，不能买什么？不能买 residential property、detached house、semi-detached、condominium unit， 这些都不可以买。然后呢，就回到下面一个问题：如果有人 break 这个 law 怎么办？其实呢，这个 law， 这个违背这个 law 是刑法犯罪，可以处罚呢1万块钱的罚金。另外呢，如果政府发现，不是不让外国人买吗？外国人买了怎么办？可以强迫他把这个房子卖出来。另外，有加拿大人如果帮助这些人隐藏事实，然后买这个房，是可以有这个 criminal 这方面的 liability。所以说大家要非常非常小心。所以说现在就回到了第一个问题，那个人问农场可不可以买？所以说呢，好像又像我们律师 typical answer yes and no。为什么？因为那个有个 amendment 这个法律，如果这是一片空地是 vacant land 的话，上面没有这个 residential 的 structure 的话，无论它是 zone 的是 mixed use 或者是 residential use， 这个 non-Canadian 是可以买的。所以说要回答我那个经纪朋友，我就要问他，你这个农地是什么样的农地？上面有民用房没有？所以说要进一步根据事实才能回答。刚才我们说了这个处罚条款，所以说呢，就回答到第2个风考：你们作为卖家有 liability 吗？如果买家是外国人，我这交易成功吗？ Section 5专门说了，这个如果有人违背这个法律，这个交易不受影响。所以说对第1个风考，我是给他警戒，小心小心。第2个风考呢，我是安慰他，因为是不是 non-Canadian 这件事儿是买家本人跟买家的律师搞清楚。作为卖家来说，你可以 relax。好，我先说这么多哈，已经很长了。Thank you.
Thank you, Bengu. Thank you. Gary and Scott, any input on this question, please?
What I'll add is the exemptions are really important. I think my key areas are, even though if you can find an exemption, whether it be work permit or other, one of my concerns is people still have to pay the NRST. You're dealing with 25% tax. It's almost like as of March, I can find usually an exemption for a foreign national, but then we get stuck on the other half, which is the foreign tax at 25%. The other area that I find interesting is development. How do you define development? I mean, it's not renovating a kitchen or a bathroom or a basement. How much development will qualify a foreign national to purchase other than demolishing the house and putting up a brand new house? The other issue that I have to, or we have to deal with as lawyers is foreign national buys a parcel of land, house, they demolish the house, and then with the intent of building a new house. And then for one reason or another, they don't demolish and develop a new house. Is that a problem? So I'll just leave those comments.
Those are great input. Thank you, Gary. Scott, please.
So I think the one comment I will add is, as far as the foreign buyer ban is concerned, I think we've definitely seen an impact on the market. And I will speak more from, real estate broker perspective. Gary and Bangu are super experienced lawyers, so I will add to the brokerage side. I think there's definitely been an impact on the market in terms of sales volume, supply and demand. But I think we need to keep in mind that this ban is 2 years from January 1st, 2023. So by the end of next year, this ban, hopefully, if the government does not extend it, it's going to go away. And I think while it has impacted the market, it's a short-term measure. I think you're going to see the market bounce back quite dramatically once this ban goes away. Because the fact of the matter is, there's not enough supply in the real estate market. Every year, in terms of new supply, it's over 20,000 units per year. But the demand is far exceeds the supply.
That's
every
a huge
year,
challenge on the supply-demand there, right?
Huge challenge. Every year, I think the immigration to Ontario is over 200,000. To Canada is about over 500,000. So when you have that many people immigrating to Ontario, there's no way the supply can keep up. So I think those are very positive indicators for the market. And I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you. We really have to catch up the time there. So let's move to the second question. What are the changes on some existing rules or legal regulations, including some critical changes that could potentially impact real estate investment transactions? I'm not sure Bangu already covered some of those in your previous speech there, but you may more than welcome to add some other comments, please.
Thank you. Actually, we talk about new laws. This is a foreigner prohibition on the purchase. But like Gary already mentioned, we have to pay attention to the existing provincial law. The first law we talk about actually is a federal law. This one, what we call is a non-resident speculation tax, is Ontario law. So another level of government law and different kind of application. 因为现在外国人不能买了，所以说这个呢，在现实生活里头，现在我们做律师的在收这个外国人税机会不多。However, as Scott mentioned, 这个 federal 这个 law 是2年的 ，after 2 years， 那如果外国买家可以买了，这个 non-resident 这个 speculation tax 就 become more relevant， 这个 law 又回来了，对吧？还有 Gary 刚才说的那个，在那个外国人不能买房这个 federal law 里头，它有 exception， 很难用，但是还是可以用。但是如果你那样用的话，那你还是要这个 law， 这个 provincial 这个 law 又 kick in 了，然后你根据这个 law 你要付 tax。所以说呢，事实上这些其实是异曲同工。关于这个 real estate market 这个现状 ，federal、provincial、municipal， 他们都在用他们的 lawmaking power 想来做点什么。Federal government 就很直接不让买 ，provincial government 说好可以买，我 in impose different kind of tax on you。这个呢，从15%， 2017年涨到2022年的20%，currently 25%。以前是金马蹄地区才有，现在是整个 province 都有。以前是留学生，然后这个 work permit 可以 rebate， 现在 no。Only one kind of situation you can get rebate， 就是你买完以后，你变成 P2， 你才可以 rebate。所以说这个入是越来越紧，哈，就是这个外国人税这件事儿是越来越紧。其实呢，政府也是想用这个来引导什么？引导这个市场是两个 supply demand， 他们是在这个 demand 这件事情上要 do something， 对吧？现在我用几句话讲一下多伦多的这个 vacant home tax。That one works on supply。最近2022年是要报的，对吧？如果没有付的话，2023年就要收你的税，税是 1%， 不是 1% 你的 existing property tax， 是 1% of assessment value， 所以是很重的。100万的话，那叫1万块钱的税。这个税呢，其实它有很多 exception， 你的 principal residence 是不交的，你租出去了，如果有正常的房客不交。其实它就是想针对一种情况，那些可以出租的房子不出租，待在那儿，用了资源，用了机会，可是人没有用上，用这个方式来 work on 这个 supply 这个 end。所以说这个 law 呢也有很多 confusion。然后呢，我们作为 lawyers it is pretty new。你们作为卖家或者作为这个 landlord 也应该知道一点，说总而言之就是1年报一次，如果超过6个月是空的，有可能马上就会有这个 tax liability。所以说每一年到年初的时候，你就一定在2月2号以前要做一个 declaration。买房的时候记住 make sure 你的 lawyer receive the seller's declaration on closing。
Okay, thank you. Those are great input there. And the next question, we're going to talk about a question to Scott. In your recent work, what are the challenges that you were facing to or you have resolved successfully in terms of real estate transaction closing? And we trust you have extensive experience there which you can share with us. Please.
So in terms of real estate closings, I think whether you are a buyer or a seller or an investor, there's common issues we always run into when we're closing a transaction. So there may be title issues, there may be issues with your mortgage financing, documents, paperwork. If you have a lender working for you, the lender will have their own requirements. You always have to meet them to get your financing for closing. But recently, I think there's 2 big issues we see more and more. Number one is tenant issues. So when you're selling a property, or if you're buying a property, and the property is tenanted, you have to be very careful that you follow the process to deal with the tenant and that you have experts on your side.
This is one of the great points that I would like to draw attention to everybody here. Please pay attention to this point, please.
So we run into issues where, you're trying to close a property. Let me back up. You're trying to put the property on the market. And there's tenants in the property, they don't let you show the property, or they create lots of problems, right? That's the first hurdle. The second hurdle is when you're approaching closing, the tenant has to move out, right? If the buyer is not going to assume the tenant, then the tenant has to move out. And oftentimes the tenant doesn't leave, right? So they stay in the property, and this happens a lot. Agents call me, call their lawyers, they say, what do I do? And I think the important thing is, stay calm, right? Tenants are people too. They have rights. And so we have to follow the landlord-tenant process. The landlord-tenant boards has a whole regime for dealing with tenants and landlords. There are certain forms you have to follow. And so I think it's important to have experienced tenant lawyer on your side or a paralegal, because they understand how to navigate the process, how to deal with the tenants, because at the end of the day, if the tenant's not happy, they will make your life very miserable. So you need to find ways to be practical and to deal with the issue. The second, I think, common issue is buyers who are closing on a property, they cannot sell their house, which means they cannot buy the new house, or the buyer finds some issues with the property. Let's say a home inspection is done and there's various issues, or they have problems with their mortgage financing. They cannot have the funds to close. So I think for that aspect, I think it's always important to talk to your agent, your real estate broker, make sure you're all on the same page. And also for the buyer or the investor, you have to talk to your lawyer and make sure you're on the same page, right? They know where you're coming from, what you plan on doing with the property. I think that way you can ensure a smooth closing process.
Thank you, Scott. Those are two very great points there, and I trust a lot of some of our 58 home members, they are actually facing those challenges currently. Gary, any input on those?
I think Scott has a point on. I'll cover a couple of points on my section.
Sure. Yeah, Bangu, any input?
I would like to add one thing. By standard agreement of purchase and sale, on the closing, the default requirement for the seller is to deliver vacant possession. Vacant possession. 所以说，如果你有房客没赶走，绝对从 legal 的 practically 你是违约了。好，所以说记住这个刚才 Scott 说的 importance。你 dealing with 这个 tenants issue， 所以说是如果没有其他的 amendment， 没有延期，没有其他的 provision， 不是一个 condition， 你一定要记住重要，因为那一天你一定是应该给空房的啊。
Thank you, Bengu. Let's move to the next question. This is also a question that you're addressing to Scott as well. What are the challenges that you deal with in your help clients in regards to mortgage approval and documentation preparation recently in your work, please?
So I think for mortgages, right? For mortgage financing, everyone knows that the rates are very high today. And so I think it's become more challenging for buyers to qualify for mortgage financing. And so it's important to find the right mortgage lender or mortgage broker to help you get the approval. Common issues that lenders consider when considering, borrowers is what's your credit score like, your credit history, what's your employment history like, what do you do for work, do you have a good record of employment, what's your debt to income ratio. So debt to income means what's your total debt divided by your total income. Usually the lenders do not want that to go over, I think, 44%, right? So you want to have a good debt to income ratio. And also your down payment. How much down payment are you putting towards your purchase? And finally, the condition of the house, right? Depends what you're buying. If you're buying a new home, it's very different from if you're buying a 50-year-old home or a 100-year-old home. The condition will vary. Home inspection, appraisals, those issues all come into play. So I think it's always important to find the right mortgage lender, whether it's a bank or a secondary lender. And the other thing I'll add is mortgage pre-approval is very important. I think not enough people spend the right time to consider, should I get a mortgage pre-approval? Because if you go through the process for a pre-approval, it's kind of like getting a mortgage approved, right? But when you do it at the very beginning, that informs what kind of house you can buy, right? How much budget you're working with, how much down payment you need to provide. And it also forces you to consider, if I close on a property in 3 months, 6 months, what's my mortgage payment going to be? If I'm buying to invest in a property, what's my rent going to be? Will that cover my mortgage payment, right? And if I'm buying for the next 3-5 years, is there enough upside, appreciation, for me to make money on this investment? So I think those are important things to always consider.
Thank you, Scott. In appreciation to the time, sorry, we have to skip you both too for adding the comment to this question. We'll move on to the next question. This question is for Garry. Garry, we trust you have extensive experience in dealing with the litigation. Could you please share 1 or 2 cases that you dealt with before, and maybe that could benefit to our audience here today, please?
Okay, I'm going to go quickly through actually 5, 6, 7 because of time.
Okay.
Rather than go into specific incidences or facts on a case, I'll set out the 4 types of cases that we got to deal with. One is, again, what Scott mentioned, is tenants that you serve them with an N12 notice. You do everything that you're supposed to do as a landlord seller, and still the tenant is not vacating. You can go to the landlord-tenant tribunal, and it's going to take forever. So practically speaking, you got a serious problem. 2, on pre-construction, we're seeing buyers who cannot get financing. It can be as early as not getting a mortgage pre-approval when they come to the interim closing, or they just don't have the financing down pat for the final closing for a variety of reasons, including appraisal pricing, the appraisal amount on the unit. 3, buyers, again, buyer who's unable to close on their sale, so they can't close on the purchase. Finally, where we're seeing problems is that as soon as the seller has a firm offer, it's almost as if they don't care. If there are repairs for them to do before final closing, invariably it'll never get done. And we're always, as lawyers acting on a purchase, you won't get a holdback. There will be problems to deal with that on closing.
Those are great input. Thank you, Garry.
Okay. Number 6, I think one of the critical things is educating the buyer or seller. What are their expectations? Working the real estate professional, mortgage professional, and the lawyer to have a smooth closing. Honestly, you got to stay on top of the client. If it's a seller, simply because you have a firm deal, you can't be walking away from it. You got to stay on the seller, be on their back, make sure that they're doing everything that they have to do for closing. If it's for a buyer, you got to again, be on their back and make sure they get their financing. You don't want to find yourself 3 days before closing and you don't have mortgage instructions, or when they're going to the bank to apply for the mortgage 5 days out from closing. So they got to start early. They got to be on top of it. The professionals involved, whether it be someone like Scott or a banker or the lawyers, we got to stay on their back. On the mortgage approval, start early. One thing that's really important, use reliable and honest brokers and financial advisors. I've seen too many cases where there's a mortgage broker will tell a buyer, oh, everything's great, you've been approved, don't worry, but there's nothing in writing. Then when the financing condition is waived, all of a sudden you find out from the broker there is a problem. Like, why wasn't that problem brought up before? Next, you got to tell the person you're dealing with Get the paperwork ready. There's standard paperwork. They shouldn't be shuffling through paper the day of their meeting with their financial person on the approval of mortgage. They should have everything, have all their ducks lined up. Also, I think that if you run into a problem, you got to be creative. For example, you may find a case where you have a seller who is just taking out their money. Maybe they're downsizing, maybe they don't need the money, and if you have a buyer who doesn't have a mortgage, perhaps you're able to get a vendor take back. You know, you got to be flexible, you got to be able to deal with all the issues that come up, and you got to be creative.
We noticed that Garry used the word reliable brokerage or financial planner, and that's a very sincere comment to our audience here today. Bangu has some comment?
Sure, thank you. 我用刚才 Garry 讲得很好，我用中文来突出一下重点哈。买卖，说实话，买卖那一天就是一手交钱，一手交货，对吧？你作为买家，你要有钱 ，get your money ready。你作为卖家，刚才我们说了，房客在是不行的，对吧？一定房子要是空的。另外还有一个房子的 condition， 签合同的时候是什么 condition？ 你交接的时候就应该是什么 condition？ 所以说，作为 seller， you work diligently， 把你的房子 prepare。刚才我们说要 smooth closing， 我们做 lawyer 的最难受的就是交接那天。墙上有洞，地板上有孔，冰箱不工作，洗衣机漏水，这个就不叫 smooth， 然后就是一番折腾，对吧？另外呢，我们另外比较麻烦的就是，如果有 private mortgage 的，这个是整个这个过程复杂很多，因为 private mortgage 我们 lawyer 买家 lawyer 是不能 undertaken 的，所以说你有 private mortgage 的。我们要早做一些准备，好。另外呢 ，back to 这个 buyer， 其实就是 mortgage， 把它 get ready， 其实就是一手钱一手货。
I think Garry still have some points that you want to mention.
I want to add something. As important as it is to have reliable, honest financial people working on the mortgage, you need to set up a good team. You need the lawyer, you need the real estate professional, you need the financial professional, but you need people that are going to fight for you, that when the problems occur, you got to be able to have your professionals there to be creative, find ways to close the transaction, and to be strong in supporting you. I think question 7, I'll quickly make a comment.
Yeah, that's fine. The question number 7 is specifically dealing with the current pretty high mortgage rate, and any comment that Garry may provide to us.
I just have 2 points. Where we're seeing real issues is on mortgage renewals. Going back in time, we had buyers, they were getting 1.99, just like historically crazy rates. Now they're at the time of mortgage renewal, they're seeing their interest rates double or triple, they can't afford it. I went many years with very few powers of sale. I'm now doing at least 10 powers of sale a week. So you see the difference. Okay, got to be careful. Second point, the market, I will say the market is slow, but I think it also depends on the area. There are still very strong areas. And the other aspect, I think, is price points. In the 1 to 2 million price point, we see a fairly active market. What was active, like 3, 4, 5 million, has slowed down. Now, not only do we have to deal with foreign national issue, increased interest rates, but now we're hearing talk from the municipal level about increases in land transfer tax, and the thought that the municipal government, being Toronto, will come in with the municipal foreign tax. So these are things that we'll have to wait and see how it plays out.
Okay. Thank you, Gary. Any input regarding those two points, questions that we just addressed to?
I think I'll add a comment about the high interest rate environment right now. I was in a builder's info session a few days ago, and I saw a very interesting graphic. It showed all of the big banks predicting by, I think, Q1 of 2024, so let's call it March 1st of next year, all the rates they're predicting will go down, maybe to 4.5, 4.75, 4.25. So it's an interesting time. Like, Gary's mentioned, it is definitely a slower market than a few years ago. I don't know if partly it is the high interest rate, partly it's the foreign buyer ban. But I think, in the next 6 months, you're going to see the market turning around pretty quickly.
And Gary did mention that between 1 million to 2 millions, that seems as more active there, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because when you are going over 2 million to buy a house and you need a mortgage, usually a mortgage you put down 20%, so that 80% has to be a mortgage. And when you're dealing with $2-3 million homes, that's a pretty big mortgage payment that you have to qualify for and that you need to pay, right? So I think a lot of people are not as enthusiastic about maybe upsizing their home. Maybe some people are downsizing. Maybe some people are not as looking forward to investing in units. But I think you need to consider that real estate is always a long-term investment. We're not dealing with months or 1 or 2 years. You should be always considering the next 3, 5, 10 years. What do I want to invest in? Right? Whether that's your own home, even your own home is always an investment. What kind of investments do I want to look at? And where do I think the market is going to be in the next 3, 5, 10 years? So yes, today it's a softer market, but we always look to the future. And I think the future is very bright. I think, even based on the forecast from the big banks, as soon as that rate goes down, even a little bit, right? Right now, it's kind of been constant for past few months. As soon as that goes down, I think you're going to see a very big pickup in the market.
Thank you, Scott. Those are great input as well. I think we have the last 3 minutes, and we would like to give 1 minute for each guest here. Considering the current pretty stressful, pretty high mortgage rates here, what's your sincere suggestion or comments to our audience here today? 1 minute for each person, please. We'll start from Bangu, please.
Thank you. Preparation. 你总是be prepared。刚才说了，利息很高，如果你要卖房，你那 mortgage 罚款就会很高，哈。然后呢 ，mortgage 不容易准备好。如果你是新房的话 ，builder 是一般不太容易去给你tolerant， 你不能交接。他如果要给你延，他罚款也很厉害。所以说呢，在比较困难的时候，这个financial比较 tight 的时候，你要比过去更要小心，因为往往你 involve 的这个 amount， 然后你受的损失都会比过去大。但是我同意刚才 Scott 说的，我来加拿大30几年了，对吧？我看过这个高高低低，我见过11.5%的利率，对吧？我也见过1点几的利率，所以说起起伏伏，高高低低，我们就是用你的 best ability deal with 就行了。Wish everyone good luck.
Thank you, Bangu. 1 minute For Garry, please. Yeah.
I will add, I agree with what Bangu and Scott have stated already. I want people to remember every coin has two sides. Yes, it's a soft market, but again, it's a chance for other people to take advantage of perhaps lower prices. The condo market, there's a lot of investors that have to sell, and it may be a good time to purchase. So, you know, as I said, every coin has two sides.
Thank you, Garry. Scott, your 1 minute, please.
Yeah, I completely agree with Garry and Bangu. You know, you're right. Every coin has two sides. I think if you're an investor in real estate, you want to look at what everyone else is not doing, right? And you want to prepare for the future. So when I say prepare for the future, it means if you're looking to invest in real estate, now is the best time to look for the best deals because it's a soft market. Anyone who's selling real estate, maybe they can't afford their mortgage payments or they want to downsize. There's a whole host of reasons, but you can find a lot of good deals in the resale market and in the pre-construction market and in commercial. We have a lot of clients buying commercial properties. You know, when the market's really hot, everyone rushes in, and that's usually when things may be expensive, right? So when we're in this kind of market, I think you need to consider there's opportunities out there, and how do I position myself today to best take advantage of those opportunities?
So Scott is talking about rationale, right? Doing more rational business there. Again, thank you so much for each one of you. Thank you so much for all your great input. And to our audience here today, that we understand this is a pretty stressful, pretty tough situation. And we sincerely hope our guest input today could have some takeaway to each one of you. And thank you so much. Thank you.